My research project dealt with the concept of seminars and whether or not they'd be good fits in pre-collegial settings. I picked this topic because most of the classes I took this semester are seminars, and I thought, well, if we're taking them in college, what would happen if we implanted them in high school settings or middle school settings? And if we did that, what would they be better for the students, or would they be worse, or just do nothing at all? So this research project set out to determine the effectiveness of seminars. Ask the question: does it improve the grades, the focus, or the engagement from students, among other factors? And does it really even make sense to include these when the broad subjects that are taught in high school tend to move out of the purview of seminar subjects? Usually seminars are closely knit on small subjects, so they can deep dive into most of them, but lecture classes, which is what's usually used in high school, tends to be the way to go, because then you can go through a long breadth of subjects just under one like general idea of a subject. In Clanton Ray's paper, it divides the two groups between 607 students who took the course and 2021 who did not take the seminar course at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And it splits these two groups depending on how effective did they find the seminar in preparing them for future grades. Did it improve their grades? And did they end up staying in school is another issue that comes into the paper. And Radha Krishna analyzed 148 students at the College of Agricultural Science at Penn State, and whether or not these seminars are developing basic study skill and research skills, working knowledge of the university system, and a better understanding of the broader scope of agriculture in these students. Ultimately, Clanton Ray's paper finds that students who did not attend the first year seminar course are more likely, by a small margin, I forget the math on it, but it's like 30% of them, find themselves put on probation, and maybe like 0.07% are more likely to drop out, as opposed to, I believe, 0.06% of those who did take the course. However, grade-wise, the offset after the first year tends to level out at like a 3.4 average, whereas at the first year it's a 3.7 average, and then their overall averages tend to be around the same. In Scanlon and Radhakrishna's paper, many of the students recommend the course and believe they are more prepared for college. However, they don't really find that the course prepared them for the agricultural industry or the field of study. We've explored whether or not they're effective in pre and post high school settings. It's time to look at them in actual high school and middle school settings. Or delves into the effectiveness of the English seminar that he taught in high school and how it affected students, the small group of students that were involved in it. Some of the students were online, and some of the feedback that teacher puts in is that the face-to-face interactions in seminar were a lot more effective, but it was great that they could, compromise for their students since it was a smaller class. The grades in these classes were more dependent on attendance and discussion, and they were more based around interpretations rather than hard facts in a textbook. And Walsh-Moorman finds that there was more engagement from the students, deeper thought, and when compared to normal English classes. and Goldman papers from 1959 actually delve into the science and math subjects, dividing the science into 100-minute blocks and math into 80-minute blocks, with 20 minutes of recess in between. These subjects were also divided into subcategories based on different subjects to be taught, like mechanics and meteorology versus in math sets and linear programming. There was a non-credit class and it was exclusively available for the top 50 students in junior high. It was a non-credit. It was an after-school program, but they found that the seminar was a success as more students and parents were interested in taking these courses. The paper also deals with the English subject, but deals more in the effectiveness of a seminar in high school and whether or not it stands up to the task of being able to catch the engagement of high schoolers rather than its effectiveness as a class. Essentially, the paper comes down to the conclusion that a tight ship would need to be held, that no off-topic discussions would need to occur, despite the fact that there would be some freedom in discussion since it's not a linear class. And however, it can be effective so long as the teacher does not make their own presence the most important factor of the class, that sometimes the students can take it by the reins and really drive their own conversation in these classes. And finally, we look at the different forms of teachings. This paper delves into rather weird versions of teachings, in my opinion. Teaching English through not only a seminar, but broken groups depending on your interest group. And it will look further into the needs of the students. Many of the students who took these classes really enjoyed them. It was all in one room. They got to talk about the books that they liked. They got to engage with people who liked the same books. And ultimately, in the end, it was a great time. And it didn't force anybody to read something that they didn't want to. However, when it comes to test making, then you're going to have to make like 6 different tests for 6 different books or 6 different groups. However, they did also find that it could inspire more people to teach English. And as you look at the references page, I just want to say that, especially with prior slides, that certain subjects cannot be taught in this manner in high school. Like history definitely could not, since it's too broad of a subject. But I think English is definitely a good one here, because you can really just break out into a discussion about individual stories. And that's probably the most, symbiotic relationship you can get. English and the seminar style do kind of just go together naturally.